So let's talk about Lessons in Magic and Disaster by Chrl Jn, her 2025 fantasy kind of family drama LGBTQT plus novel. This is my return to Chrl Jn after All the Birds in the Sky, which was a very much lauded 2016 novel, which I was not that hot on. I thought it had a lot of interesting bits to it. I was mostly liked the relationship of the two main characters, of what I can remember. To be honest, it is a book that was so mixed, I think it mostly just flushed out of my mind and left behind kind of a little bit of an unsatisfied taste at the back of it. This, I feel like, is like a real improvement. We're talking 11 years later, 10 years, 9 years later. I'm an English major. Don't make me do math. This one I thought was really, really an improvement. Chrl Jn, I think at their heart is definitely has the hallmarks of a science fiction writer, even though this is magic, in the sense that her writing and her characters, for the most part, have a tendency to be very cerebral, very verbal, are going to kind of talk you through stuff, and your mileage may vary with that. If you're, so there is that. But I actually, for that kind of a book, I thought this was probably one of the better versions of this. So in this book, a young witch, I'll give you the blurb basically. A young witch, Jamie, a trans woman, teaches her estranged mother, Serena, magic, and things go downhill from there. But really, they've been downhill already, because this is a family book, and she is estranged from her mother because her other mother, May, has passed away from a illness, a cancer, years earlier. And the relationship has sort of it was complicated before that, and it's continued. Into this mix, we also have the character Ro, who's picked her name from Ro Laren, of Star Trek: The Next Generation thing, where Ro Laren was a difficult, prickly character, and Ro, her partner, is a difficult, prickly character. And this is actually, I think, one of the kind of signs of, ooh, I'm interested in this author, is because yes, there's like 4 main characters in this book, but the one of them and 3 of them are very verbal, will kind of speak out what's going on, will work it out loud. This is how I process the world too. But into this mix, we have Jamie's partner, Ro, who is internal and does not think out loud. I think the characteristic phrase that comes up is, Ro looked like she was about to say something and then didn't. And that is Ro throughout this book. She looks like she's about to say something, and then she doesn't. And then, eventually she says this out loud. It's like, look, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I'm feeling. I will let you know when that happens. Leave me alone until then. And I was genuinely excited about this character in there. Because maybe she's not as verbal, and because I think she's outside of what I perceive is probably Chrl Jn way of viewing the world, like my own, is different. She doesn't appear as much, but it's like, oh, we don't have just all the characters sound like the author. This is a character who is different. This is different, and is outside, and is actually given her own agency, her own story, and her own space to kind of develop who she is as a character. So I was quite excited by this nonverbal character in a very, what is still is a pretty verbal book. Both Jamie and Ro are grad students. Jamie is, this kind of really goes into the plot, is doing a dissertation on a female, well, okay, what do we do? It's a book called a fictional book that was probably written in like the 1730s to 1740s. Emily, A Tale of Paragons and Deliverance by a Lady. It's anonymous. And a part of her thing is to try and figure out who that person is. That's kind of a literary mystery there. But there's also into that is just kind of navigating what the various lives of people in that time was, and how it really reflects on how women struggle in the present, in the current day, in a deeply misogynist society. This is an intergenerational book. Oh, God, I feel so old saying this, because Jamie and Serena are the present day, and then we have Jamie and Ro are the present day kind of couple and their struggles. But we also get half of this book is Serena and May and them living and being young women in the 1990s, which, because I am an old dude, the 1990s, that's present day. It's like, no, I'm an old dude. I'm the older couple in this book, in timeline and all the markers that are given here. And there's just is just like an interesting intergenerational thing because you get to see May in the past alive. You get to see Serena and May kind of having their own struggles of a wider societal ones, the kind of the start of like internet hate mobs, and how they completely fuck up actually Jamie, Serena, and May's life, and then how that's unfortunately hasn't gone away. It's just evolved into a different kind of hate stuff now, and how that is seriously fucking up their lives. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of this that Jamie is a witch, and let's set aside this is not someone's shooting lightning bolts or stuff like that. There's no magic systems. Well, there's not really magic systems. This is witchcraft magic as kind of a meditation, as almost a mindfulness thing. It's that thing of like, there's influences and you put out stuff, you put out intentions into the world. You have kind of a focal point of maybe you've made a little shrine. You find special places that are kind of the intersections between nature and what we've done to nature, kind of civilization, and kind of liminal spaces, and you go in those spaces and you think, you kind of have you form crystallized intention, and it's not like bazap, something happened. It's more like you've introduced something, even if it's just introduced it into yourself and that's made you more focused. It's it's the subtle magic. It's the subtle, sophisticated, I guess, is a way of putting it, magic. If you go into this thing expecting a fantasy novel with like bazap, zing, this is like this. You can go into this thinking that you can go into this and believe magic is bullshit and it's nonsense, but it's a way of thinking. It's a way of being mindful that is kind of in contrast to a lot of very kind of neat divides that we have in our life. And indeed, I think there's definitely some commentary here of because of Jamie's interest in like the 1730 to 1740, that kind of period of, we're talking the Enlightenment and the rise of science and the kind of the bubblings of like, always continuing struggles of like where are women at. There's kind of questions of like, there are cycles where, women were a lot more freer earlier on, and then suddenly things started shutting down and becoming much more conservative in the 1700s, and you start seeing that as like, the 1990s were a freer, opener thing leading up to today, where we're suddenly getting much more repression again, much more harshness, especially directed towards trans people. So there's all that going on. This I really enjoyed this book. The stakes are small. We're really focusing on all these relationships. But we still have kind of the wider scope of trying these women trying to kind of figure out what the fuck to do in their lives, and kind of honoring that. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is a very verbal book. These people, for the most part, other than Roe, they are kind of talking. They're talking this stuff through. There's a certain point where you kind of go, "Oh, this feels like it's slightly more therapy session than it is story." But I think by that point I was invested enough in the characters that I was right in that therapy session with them, and I enjoyed that. That may not be your thing. If you're looking for a plot, you're not going to get it here. And maybe if you're looking for show not tell, this isn't your thing. I've got enough science fiction roots that, like, oh, a good bit of telling done the right way. It can be entertaining, can be enlightening on itself. I feel like this book has the perfect ending. There is a coda section at the end. I'm not going to get into it, but it's like, okay, we visit everybody at the end, and we just have an end. We have an end point with Jamie, of her with her eyes shut, which just feels, oh, that is perfect. That is the place to end this story. Still complicated, still working stuff out, still fucked up, still just alive in a way. And it's a book that's full of other books. I was saying, like, Emily, this book it's a tale of paragons and deliverance by a lady, but we get Sarah Fielding, we get Jane Collier, we get a lot of women who are writing in the 17th century, which is like, oh, this is stuff that I'm interested in actually kind of going back and looking at. And just there's just a whole thing of the crisis. I think the poor class that Jamie has to teach to, basically a viper's pit of, well, some certain number of people, a viper's pit of first years, maybe not first years, is the crisis of the English novel, which is like, oh, that would just be a fun thing as a novel reader to kind of get into more. There's always a crisis. From the beginning, there's been a crisis in the English novel. And of course, also the idea of how the English novel is kind of caught up in the birth of industrialization, of capitalism, of, having the moneyed class of people able to spend time in developing and attention to have an audience for this particular kind of art form. And, where that's gotten us, where that's fucked us up, where that is maybe not such a great thing, and is that another part of the crisis of the English novel? Yeah. So I really, really, really did enjoy this book, Lessons in Magic and Disaster by Chrl Jn. All right, I have been Jay. More videos later.